Hello and welcome to the business of marketing. In today's video, we will talk about market share. Market share is something which is used very commonly, yet it is not always understood as well as it should be. In today's episode, we will look at all aspects of market share from what exactly is market share, how do you go about calculating it, and what are some of the questions and considerations that you should keep in mind so that you are able to use it to your benefit and also look smart when you use it. I can assure you that by the end of this episode, you will know enough about market share so that you're never again confused with any aspect of market share. My name is Rahul and I run the business of marketing. I have over 15 years of experience helping various kinds of brands with their marketing and advertising requirements, and I am here to share my experience with you. Business of marketing is for all kinds of individuals, whether you're a student or you're a professional who wants to utilize this knowledge in day-to-day work. As you can see, this is a new channel, so it would really help if you leave your comments so that I know what else to add and how to make my content better. And also, if you can subscribe, that would really be nice. On this channel, I will be demystifying several other concepts of marketing, so check out the description below for links to other videos. And please stay with me until the end of the video because I have a special bonus where I'll talk about how market share is actually calculated in the real world and how is it applied to different aspects. So let's dive straight into market share. The market share of a particular product, brand, or company is the portion of sales it owns in relation to the overall market. It is always calculated for a specific market or a region or a geography and for a specific period of time. Let's try and understand the concept a little better with the help of an example. Imagine that we are looking at the market share for fountain pens in Singapore for the year 2019 in value terms, which will be measured in dollars. Let's call the three products fountain pen A, B, and C. These three pens saw an annual sales of $20, $30, and $50 respectively. If you add all three of them together, you will see that the total sales for fountain pens in Singapore in 2019 is $100. So as a result, you can say that the market share of fountain pen A is 20%, fountain pen B is 30%, and fountain pen C is 50%. In this particular example, we've looked at market share in value terms, which is in dollars. However, it is not necessary that you always have to calculate market share in terms of value. Market share is an attempt to understand the size of your business as compared to the category in which it exists, and therefore it can be calculated in many ways. The other most commonly used measure of market share is in volume terms, which is the number of units sold. Which brings me to the first two questions that you should be considering whenever you look at market share. The first question is, what exactly does this market share represent? Is it for a particular product or for a brand or for the size of the business who owns a brand or a product? In our example, we've calculated the market share for a particular product, which is fountain pens. The next question to look at is, what is the market share being measured in terms of? Is it measured in terms of value? In which case it could be something like, in our example, Singapore dollars. Or is it being measured in terms of volume, which can be in terms of the number of units which are being sold for that particular product. So as I was saying, market share need not necessarily always be about products. It could also be about brands, or it could be the market share of a company which owns a set of brands or many different products. In the next example, you can see that I have flipped the three products with three different brands and everything else remains the same. And in the next example, I'm showing the market share of three companies instead of products or brands. It is very likely that these companies own one brand which is actually sold as one single product, and therefore the market share of the company is pretty much the same as the market share of the products or the brands which are being sold by that company. Now let's look at how market share is actually calculated. If we take the same fountain pen example, you can see how many of them were sold by each of the three different products in every single month of 2019 in Singapore market. Simply by adding up the monthly sales of each of the products, you'll get the annual sales. In our example, fountain pen A's annual sales is 20, that of fountain pen B is 30, and that of fountain pen C is 50. Once you have this data, you need to find out what's the annual sales for the entire category. In this case, it will be 20 plus 30 plus 50, which is equal to 100. Once you have the annual sale for every brand and the annual sales for the entire category, you can find out the market share of every brand very easily. In our example, if you want to calculate the market share of fountain pen A, then you take the annual sales of fountain pen A, divide that by the annual sales of the entire category and multiply that by 100. That will give you the market share, which is always expressed in percentage term, which in this case is 20% for fountain pen A. And similarly, the market share of fountain pen B is 30 divided by 100 into 100, which is 30%, and that of fountain pen C is 50 divided by 100 into 100, which is 50%. The other question to keep in mind is what is the period of time that this market share represents. It could be a quarterly, it could be a half yearly, it could be annual, or it could be for a much longer period of time. And I've already mentioned this a couple of times, but I just want to repeat it once again, that it is always important to keep in mind what is the region that this market share data represents. The region could be a part of a country, or it could be for the entire country, or it could be for a much larger region, or even global. What we've seen until now is what exactly is market share, how do you go about calculating market share, and what are some of the questions you should keep in mind every time you take a look at market share data. In the next part of this video, I will talk about some of the very important considerations coming from real life experience as to what makes market share data so useful and so relevant. It is totally possible that you might have the market share data and yet it does not answer some of the questions that you might have. In our example, if the question was to try and find out what is the size of the fountain pen category and what is the market share of each of the individual brands that form a part of this category for the period of 2019 in a market in Singapore, either in value terms or in volume terms, then we had the right data. But what if the category wasn't fountain pens? What if the category was pens in general? What if the category was office stationery overall? In that case, having the fountain pen data is not the best representation of either the overall pens category or even the office stationery category. So it's important to have the right kind of data for the right kind of questions that you have in mind or that you are looking for answers to. The other crucial consideration to keep in mind is whether the brand has all of its sales happening offline or is a part of it or a huge chunk of that sales coming from online means. This is something which is extremely relevant, especially in today's times. We know it intuitively as consumers that there is so much that we buy online. Therefore, if your data is representing only the offline sales, then it might not be complete. It would still be representative, but it might not give you the full picture. The last important consideration around market share is to try and understand how exactly has the market share data been collected. I had promised you at the start of the video that there is a special section at the end of the video where I'll talk about market share from the real world and how is it actually calculated. So here it comes. In the case of most of the big brands, they subscribe to something known as retail audit data. There are a few retail audit data firms, and one of those that I have worked with personally in my experience is called Nielsen. The retail audit data will give you a full picture of how much sales is actually happening in modern trade, which is places like convenience stores, hypermarkets, supermarket, and also in traditional trade, which is like mom and pop stores around the corner. However, what the data does not tell you is how much sales is happening in the online channels that the brand might have. In most cases, brands have their own online data and they can add it to the kind of offline data which is available through the retail audit panels. The way this data is collected is extremely interesting. The data is collected in primarily two ways. The first way is to collect all of the point of sale data, which is every time you go and you check out from a store, when you're making the payment, that data is collected by firms like this. And the other way of collecting data is through random retail audits where someone actually visits these stores in a randomized manner and checks on whether the details being collected are correct or not. And therefore, the kind of data that you get from these audits is extremely precious, and no wonder most of the marketers or brands that I have worked with are subscribing to some form or the other of a retail audit data. If I was to summarize the benefits of retail audit data, there are 5 things which stand out for me. Firstly, it is very important for businesses to know the ex-factory or the sellout data. But what does sellout data exactly mean? In most cases, what exactly happens is that the product moves from the factory to a large distributor or a stockist or a wholesaler, and from there it moves to a retailer. So while the brands might have access to the data when the product is actually leaving the factories, but they don't always have access to the data when the product arrives at the retail outlets, and they don't know what exactly is the quantities which are being sold, at what price are they being sold, what kind of promotions are being run, and other such details. And that's where the retail audit data comes in, where it gives you the data from the retail storefront. The second thing which is important is the retail audit data is provided by every channel of distribution. So in a market, there could be many channels of distribution which are being utilized by brands. For example, in modern trade, there could be convenience or hypermarkets or supermarkets, or in traditional trade, there could be mom and pop stores or something else. The retail audit data gives you not only the entire data for sales, but it also gives you data by every single channel of distribution. Thirdly, the data is always provided per SKU. So for example, if you have a product in different weights or in different sizes or in different price points, the data from the retail audit panel will provide you the details for each one of them. Next, the retail audit data is also a great way to understand the power of distribution that you have as a brand. The majority of the distribution data is actually collected from the retail audit panels, where you get a very good sense of the number of outlets where your product is being sold, what are the different SKUs which are being stocked, what is it that is selling really well, at what speed and at what pace and at what velocity, and similar other things you might want to know. And therefore, the retail audit data is considered as one of the best ways to understand the power of supply or distribution for a particular brand. And lastly, the retail audit data is extremely useful to understand the price on the ground. There could be many instances where either the wholesaler or the retailer does something to either move the price up or down, or puts it on promotion, or various other things which they can do. For example, distributors might give out discounts to retailers, and retailers might pass on this discount to consumers to be more competitive. And as a result, the price being actually charged could be different from the intended retail selling price. And that brings me to the end of this video on market share. I am really hoping that you were able to find out a little more about market share than what you probably already knew. If there are any specific questions that you might still have, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try and answer them as well as I can. And before I leave, I wanted to say this yet again: please like and subscribe this video. It's a new channel. Anything that you do will really help me in gaining traction. And I will be making a lot of other videos on marketing, demystifying the terms which we usually tend to know, but sometimes they just trip us. So please subscribe to this channel to stay informed. At the same time, while watching these videos, if you think that your business needs any kind of help, I am available to help out. My details are provided in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and see you again in a lot more content that I'll be sharing soon.